Hello, so in this tutorial, we'll be covering random variables, we'll be defining continuous and discrete variables, talking about probability distribution and its features, how to find probability, mean, variance, and standard deviation, plus the definitions. So let's get started. I'm going to start off by defining what exactly a continuous and discrete variable is. So a continuous variable can take on any countless number of values in a line interval. So this basically means that order doesn't exactly matter because the values can so easily change. While in discrete, the variables are finite. They have a specific number and a specific order attached to these numbers, and this cannot change. I provided an example, so I'm going to let you take a moment to guess which is continuous and which is discrete. So the continuous variable would be the wrestler's weight, since weight can easily change and therefore it isn't as finite as, let's say, a carton of eggs that always has a dozen eggs, and this number is unmovable. Continuing on, we're talking about the probability distribution. So the probability distribution is an assignment of probabilities to each discrete random variable or to each interval of values of the continuous variable. So its features are that the probability distribution has a probability assigned to each distinct value of the random variable, and two, they must always sum up to 1. If it does not sum up to 1, that means that the spread of the data is incomplete and therefore cannot be properly assessed. So let's do example 1. Let's say there is a high school with a collection of 10,000 students. These students' GPA stretch from 0 to 5. So here we have the GPAs, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the number of students that should add up to 10,000. Now we're going to be trying to figure out what's the probability of a student having a 3.0 GPA. What you're going to do is divide the variable, which is the 105, 2,000, and so on, by the sum of the sample, which is 10,000. So I'm going to give you a moment to just figure it out, and then we'll reconvene. So what you should have done was for value 0, you divide the 105 by the 10,000, which will result in 0.0105 to get a 1% chance. So these sums are basically the percentage of chance that there is to having this sort of GPA. So in number 3, we have 3,000 students out of 10,000 students have a 3.0 GPA, which means that 30% of the high school has 3.0 GPA. That is how we find probability. And when adding all of these numbers up, it should result in the number 1, as we previously discussed, that they must all sum up to 1 to be properly distributed in data. So with this info, let's find the mean, the standard deviation, and the average of the data. Sorry, not the average. I meant the variance. So the mean basically means the average of the data, and the standard deviation measures the spread of the data away from the mean. So with our previous example, to find the mean, we would have to add them all together while also multiplying them by their x. So the GPA would be the X, and the probability that we figured out would be the XP. So I'm going to give you a moment, or you could just pause the video to figure out what this is added up all together to find the mean of the problem. Okay, so hopefully you figure that out. And in adding that all up together, we find that the mean is 3.059. Now, a way to spread out this problem of the standard deviation, understand it and truly grasp the work that you'll be able to do to reduce errors and anything like that, is to truly understand the sections of this equation. So the E is the sum of the mean, and then we're multiplying it by x minus the mean to the second power times px, and then this is all square rooted. So an easiest way to do this is with a chart. We have the x on one side, which is the 0 through 5, the xp, which is the probability that we figured out, and then to find the mean, we multiplied x times x px to get the mean, which is 3.059. So I'm going to give you a moment to figure out the x minus mean, which is the next step in this problem. So you're going to be subtracting 0 through 5 by the mean that we figured out, which is 3.059. And I'll give you a moment to figure that out. You can pause the video. Okay, if you were able to figure it out, you would have gotten these values, which normally when figuring out this problem, you should see this kind of trend where we start off with a very high negative number to a very to leaving negative numbers and entering positive numbers. So in the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to be square rooting. Sorry, not square rooting. We're going to be multiplying this by the second power. So I'm going to give you a moment to pause the video and figure out that section. Okay, if you were able to do that, then we have these numbers as a result. I want you to pay attention that each section of this problem has its own responsibilities and own focuses that will eventually lead us to the variance and standard deviation which we are trying to find. So here we have all of these values, which we're just going to multiply by xp, which is the probability that we found earlier. So we have the 0.015, 0.2, and so on. So you're just going to multiply that together. I'm going to give you a moment to pause the video and we can check back together. All right, if you were able to figure that out, you would have gotten these values, which would result in the 1.8326 that we see here on the screen. So that alone is your variance. Variance is the 1.326. And the only missing piece that we have to this equation is the square rooting. So to find the standard deviation, we just have to square root 1.8326 to get the standard deviation of 1.3547. So to recap, we were able to distinguish between discrete and continuous variables, find probability as well as mean, variance, and standard deviation while breaking it all apart and truly understanding the definitions and what exactly goes into being able to solve a problem like this. Thank you.